So in this grammar video, I'm going to talk about clauses and phrases with the help of my three grammar cats, Hedwig, Ramsay, and Katniss. Just for reference, they are named after the books and not the movies, except for Ramsay. Okay, this one has a special appearance by my sister's pug, Buddy Boop, and a mean seagull from the beach. All right, a clause is a group of words that always contains a subject and a verb. I often call this the caveman part of sentences, be hungry type of thing, or eyes glowed. So you've got the verb, which is glowed, and you have the subject, which is performing the action of the verb. In this case, you ask, what glowed? Eyes did. So that is the subject. An independent clause has a subject and a predicate, which is the unit that says something about the subject. And an independent clause forms a complete thought. It is a simple sentence. In this case, it is Hedwig decorated the house. So the verb is decorated. And then you ask yourself who or what decorated, and that is Hedwig. He is the subject. Yes, I know in the books, Hedwig is a female owl in Harry Potter. My cat just happens to be a boy. He looked very much like Hedwig, so he is named in honor of that. So the verb here is decorated, and the object receives the action of the verb. So you ask, what was decorated? In this case, it is the house. So that is an independent clause. Look pretty deeply into it, but it is very basically a simple sentence. It can stand by itself. A dependent clause adds information to the independent clause, but it cannot stand alone. This is where sentence fragment territory comes in, so please beware. So here's the independent clause from the previous slide. Hedwig decorated the house. Now, and waited for Santa before bed is a dependent clause because it is not a full sentence. The second half, the dependent clause, does not have a subject. It has a verb and an object, but it does not have a subject, so it is not a simple sentence. So again, that is an independent clause. It can stand by itself. And this is the dependent clause. It depends on something else for it to be a complete sentence. And then there's Hedwig clause. He is in the chimney waiting for Santa. Conjunctions. If you were a fan of the cartoon Schoolhouse Rock, then you might remember conjunction, junction. So here's Katniss here teaching us how to connect things together. Conjunctions very basically join words, phrases, or clauses, and they indicate the relation between the elements. The fanboys are conjunctions, basically. So if you have never heard this before, then this is a really good acronym to remember. The fanboy conjunctions are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Fanboys. So this is where we start to think about rules with commas and semicolons. And we will get into that in a different video. But very basically, is that the fanboys can help you with compound sentences. So a compound sentence combines two or more independent clauses. Remember, an independent clause is a simple sentence. You can join a couple of them together to have more complex sentence structure in your papers. So you can't just stick them together and hope for the best. The two sentences must be joined together somehow, and this is where conjunctions come in. You can join them by a conjunction or a very fancy grammatical element called an adverbial clause. Don't worry too much about that one in this video. I will, however, point them out for you. So here is a compound sentence. I found a new toy, and I pretended to be a turtle. Good job, Hedwig. Two sentences squished together. I found a toy, that is an independent clause. I pretended to be a turtle is also an independent clause. It is joined together by one of the fanboys. For and, nor, but, or, yet, so. This is a fanboy, and here is one of the rules for the use of a comma. I see this error happen quite often in essays. So remember this when it comes to commas and conjunctions in compound sentences. If you have two independent clauses like this sentence right here, and you use a fanboy to connect them, you must use a comma. That is one of the comma rules. Again, two independent clauses. I found a new toy. I pretended to be a turtle. They are joined together. They are connected by a fanboy, so you must use a comma. Okay, here's Ramsey showing us a different type of connection. He's sitting under my lamp. I joke that he is getting a tan. I went to the beach and I got a tan. So the reason that first one needs a comma is because you can see I went to the beach and got a tan. I got excited. Excuse me. Back up. I went to the beach. I got a tan. Those two are independent clauses that can stand alone. They are joined by a fanboy, word and, so you must use a comma. The second one, I went to the beach and got a tan. There we go. There is no subject in the second part. Got a tan is not a complete sentence, so you do not use a comma. There you go. That is something called a compound verb in this case. Again, don't worry too much about this. I just want to point it out. There's that fanboy. Okay. Again, we will get into punctuation, commas, and semicolons a bit later. But please remember this rule. It is a rule 99% of the time, just like most things, there are exceptions. So if you use a fanboy, those fanboys, if you have one of them, a for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so, then you do not use a semicolon. They do not get along. Fanboys do not like semicolons. Again, there are exceptions, and I will get into that, but for the most part, if you remember this rule, you will do well. Okay, here is another way to join a sentence together. No, I don't usually take pictures of my cats drinking water, but where his face is, there is no water. He is just being a little derp, I guess, and he's drinking out of the wrong spot. So I took a picture. So here's another one. Use a semicolon when a conjunction is not used. Again, compound sentences, two independent clauses, must be connected somehow. You cannot just erase the period between two sentences and hope for the best. So here's this one. No one was home. I was alone with the food. You have an independent clause on the left. No one was home. You have an independent clause on the right. I was alone with the food. If you do not want to use a conjunction, like a fanboy, then you must squish them together somehow. In this case, you use the semicolon. Show that again. I was an independent clause, semicolon, independent clause. All right, I get excited and I get ahead. Here is another example. You can also use a semicolon when an adverbial unit, there's that scary phrase, so very basically a simple adverb, joins the two clauses. Again, don't worry too much about that, but here's the example. Now, I'm sleeping on the stool. Later, I will sleep on the couch. That is called an adverbial unit. Now, you have an independent clause on the left. Now I am sleeping on the stool. You have an independent clause on the right. Later, I will sleep on the couch. You squished them together. There is no fanboy, so you use a semicolon. That's basically all you need to remember. The words now and later is a different part of grammar, so you do need a comma there. Again, we will talk about that. But two independent clauses, no fanboy equals a semicolon. That is something called a simple adverb. Here's Ramsey again, praying for your good study times and good grades. So you can also use a semicolon when an adverbial unit, like a short phrase, joins the two clauses. Again, I'm just showing you all the different ways that independent clauses can be, or excuse me, compound sentences can be joined together. So in this case, you have some independent clauses. I cannot comment on the events of the day. that can stand alone, as well as the second part. In fact, I slept through most of it. For some reason, you want those to be a complex singular sentence. So there is no fanboy for and nor but or yet so. So you use a semicolon. That short phrase, in fact, is something that needs a comma. Again, we'll go through it. But basically, 2 independent clauses, no fanboy equals semicolon. Short phrase. Okay, here is Hedwig again. He's a very special boy. He is cuddling up on that very comfortable pile of computer wires. Silly. So you can also use a semicolon when an adverbial unit or a conjunctive adverb joins the 2 clauses. I just want to show you what it looks like, but I think you understand the whole semicolon thing. Your concern is noted. There you go. That's an independent clause. As well as, however, I like to sleep on your computer wires. It's very similar to the previous slide. 2 independent clauses, no fanboy equals a semicolon. That is the conjunctive adverb. It is an adverb that kind of connects them. Again, don't worry too much about that. Just want to show you what compound sentences can look like in all different formulas. And then I have kind of 3 examples here. You can have a simple adverb, you can have a short phrase, you can have something called a conjunctive adverb, which means connecting adverb. All of these are compound sentences that do not use a comma because there is no fanboy. Here are the most common conjunctive adverbs. So if you start a sentence with one of these, you almost always use a comma. Therefore, however, nonetheless, consequently, moreover, otherwise, besides, furthermore, and accordingly. Okay, just like all rules, there are exceptions. So sentence fragments, can be problematic. Excuse me. A complete sentence, remember, must contain a subject and a verb. It must be able to stand alone as an independent unit. You cannot start with a subordinating conjunction. Again, we will go over that at a future slide, but I just want to show you the rules of a complete sentence. Okay. As with most rules, like I said, there are exceptions. These are considered sentence forms. Avoid them in academic essays. If you see them in a book or a flyer or something, don't get too angry because they are technically sentences. A command, an exclamation, a bit of dialogue, occasional transition between units of thought, and the imperative. And I have a quick example of each one. A command, this really means seagull, is commanding me. So in a command, grammatical construction is you take out the subject of the sentence, the person performing the action of the verb, and then it turns into a command. For example, get off my beach. That is a command. If you have you in it, you get off my beach, it's less of a command, but if you take away the you, the implied you really makes this a strong command. Get off my beach. He really was a jerk. He stole my French fries. Exclamations. Here is Ramsey. He looks so very excited. He needs his tan. He's looking kind of pale. Excitement. You wouldn't traditionally use a complete sentence, but an exclamation, you are exclaiming something very quickly, and it is a sentence form. A bit of dialogue. If you are being creative and creating dialogue, you can kind of do whatever you want. So here's Hedwig. He's a cross-eyed wonder. New camera. That would be a complete sentence because it is a bit of dialogue. And transitions between units of thought. For example, Hedwig with his Christmas presents says, on with the show. That would work just fine. Also, and now for the finale. All right. The imperative is something you must do right now. For example, you must run, help, save yourselves. Those are imperative sentences. Thank you for watching this Grammar Cat. I hope this helps to clarify some things that you are working on in your writing, and I'll see you in the next video.